Good afternoon, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever I'm reaching you at. This is your brother Herman with another one of Brother Herman sermons. Once again, we're coming through under the umbrella of MaikumCdeTruthorg. This is a nonprofit organization that has just been built and equipped, solely appointed and anointed by a Holy Trinitarian Godhead Most High. He has pretty much sent us forth to bring forth his truths, to deliver some knowledge, some informations to the people that are lost, our brothers and sisters. It could be even strangers out there in the streets even, but mainly for the brothers and sisters who are roaming around this earth in search of their true identities, their purpose, why they were created and why they're here. That's what we're designed to do. That's what we're here. That's why we're here. And if we can help you, hit that comment button at the bottom of your screen. It's there for a reason. If you want to assist us in this ministry, that same comment button is there for a reason. It will allow you to assist us. If you don't know how to, again, hit the comment button and we'll drop some information for you. If we can help you, we'll help you. If I can't, I know someone who can. We've already launched 24 series. We're working on series 25 tonight, which we have entitled, God is the Creator. We're just the mere creations. That's all we are. Just the creation. So when you think about God, you think about him as like your father. If you had a good father figure or a dad growing up, think about him like that way. If you want to think about God, you can think about your mother as well, because God has a lot of female qualities about him. So that's why he doesn't really claim a sex. If you didn't have good parents when you were coming up, think about a good guardian or a brother or sister, cousin, somebody who treated you very well unconditionally, because that's what God is all about, unconditional love. That's called agape in the 5 or 7 different senses of the word love. Unconditional, that's what it's all about. We're going to be launching episode number 4 tonight, which we have entitled, Don't, or should I say avoid, if you can, spiritual vasectomy. And we'll get into that in just a minute. I know it's pretty interesting. It's going to be very interesting. You don't want a spiritual vasectomy. And for all of those adults out there that know what I'm talking about, the male usually is the one that get the vasectomy, and the female is the one that get their tubes tied. They're pretty much the same thing, and we're going to dive into that in just a minute. Once again, if you want to assist us, by all means do so. If you need some help, hit that comment button. Until then, in the meantime and in between time, we're going to go ahead and crank it up. Series 25, God is the Creator, we're just creations, that's all we are. Episode number 4, avoid spiritual vasectomy. We're going to begin it like this. First, we're going to tap into the great book, that dictionary called the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. We're going to define and dissect what it means to receive a vasectomy. It means the surgical cutting and sealing of part of each vas deferens. And I know a lot of people are saying, what the heck is that? Vas deferens is just a fancy term that they use for the tubes which carry the semen out of the penis and into the vagina. That's all it means. Typically as a mean of sterilization. Typically as a means for sterilization, okay? So no semen in the male fluid, ejaculation, no babies, no recreation, no producing life, means no God-given children, no offspring. And what does God say about that? Well, this is what he says. In Genesis 1:28, be fruitful and multiply. The basic instructions before leaving earth, our Holy Bible. In the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verses 28 says, be fruitful and multiply. He's talking to the man and the woman, Adam and Eve, if you will. But all of us are called to be fruitful and multiply, meaning bring forth God some offspring. Psalm 127, chapter 127, verse 3 says, children are a reward, a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the mother's womb. The fruit of the mother's womb is the reward. How can you produce the reward if you can't send your semen through a tube that you have slit? that has been cut. By who? By your decision. So be careful before you make that decision to cut off your way of reproducing for God, because God calls us to reproduce. We don't want to cut that tube. We don't want to cut that portal that the baby comes through, or from, should we say. And we'll get into that too. Malachi, the book of Malachi, chapter 2, verses 15 says, God made man and woman as one. That's why he told Adam to join your wife, leave your family, your mother and your father, and go be one. Go be as one. Why? Because he, God, seeks godly offspring. It's very simple. So again, without the ability to reproduce is the equivalent of no legacy. We're going to go ahead and tap into the reason why we're talking about the legacy that a man and a woman ought to leave, but more so about the man perspective of it. Why? Because I'm a man. But I'm not biased, and I don't leave out the female side of it. So we're going to choose to learn right, correctly, and reject what? The spiritual vasectomy. Why? Because it ain't where you're from, it's where you're at. And yeah, it's true. Life begins where we're from, what hood we grew up in, what social status we're born into, what environment we find ourselves playing within, the atmospheric conditions. All of those things play a part, but that's where we are from. It doesn't mean that we're not supposed to be moving through life according to God's basic principles, his basic instructions, the basic instructions before leaving earth. We have a blueprint for how we ought to live. And if we don't live that blueprint, we face a possibility of receiving a spiritual vasectomy. Okay? So it's not about where you're from. It's about where you're at in life. About the things and the circumstances of those circumstances, the nature of them you were born into, that's where you're from. However, no matter the status level we were born into, our destinies and legacies we leave behind is determined by what? Our knowledge, leadership, and the loved ones' teachings that we received. Because this is how we are taught, how we learn, what we teach. So therefore, based on these factors and truths, because they're your truth, and the possible outcome equation of our legacies left behind, the question remains, did you or I, did we, or should we have had an experience at some point within our lives, our journeys in time, that made us do what? Have an experience which what? Caused a change in what? Our self-perception. In our, you could say, what is Donald Trump? He's a narcissist. In our narcissism, because we're all born with a little bit of narcissism. Well, I shouldn't say we're born with it. We're taught it. Generally about elementary school, grade school, right before we get to grade school. And maybe even during our, toddler time, because we're taught how this is mine and no, I won't share it. Or we're taught this is mine and yes, you can share it with me. So how were you taught? It's based on what you are learning when you grow. And what you are learning when you grow is based on your mentality. So did you have that paradigm shift moment, that experience, that plethora of euphorias that could have possibly came your way? Did you receive those graciously, or did you reject those? Were you given them, or were you not? Because some of us were never given those types of moments in our lives where we had a epiphanic moment where we can, like a spiritual a paradigm shift that caused us to change the way we think, the way we view life. Because if all I view life is negative, that's how I'm going to treat everyone else, including myself. Okay? And even the worst of us all, mostly, I would say 90% of the time, we know how to treat our children good, but we treat everybody else in an ungodly fashion. Is that what God wanted? No, he does not. So he sends you a messenger or messengers along your journey. He might allow some things to happen to you for you to what? Experience. Could be traumatic, but it's enough to wake you up, look up instead of out, and ask for help. Did you do that, or did you ignore him? And if you ignored him, he'll do it again. He'll send somebody else until you get the point and the message that, hey, it's me. It's God. It's your creator. It's the Father in heaven, the one who loves you unconditionally. I am trying to reach you with the truth so that you can stop listening to these opinions that are around you and all this factual data that can change and be twisted to fit somebody else's agenda. Generally speaking, our arch enemy, the enemy of us all, Lucifer. His job is to distract you and keep you distracted from God's what? Truth. Brother Herman is a messenger. That's all I am. I'm not God. I'm not Jesus. But Jesus came to do what? Deliver us the truth. It is a choice. You can either choose, make a decision, informative decision, to listen to the truth. Therefore, go on in knowledge, doing the will of our Father who art in heaven, versus your own will or the world's will or Satan's will, if you will. Or you can not. You can reject that. And if you reject that, that's the same thing as a spiritual vasectomy. Because what's going to happen after so many times, after time, after time, the chance after chance after chance that our Father will give us, eventually that tube, that portal, it's going to close, it's going to shut off. There's going to be no way back to God. And then what? And then this. Once we begin experiencing a much needed paradigm, this kind of shift in our individual mentalities, our perceptions, the way we think, because that's the way we speak, and the way we speak is the way we behave. So once we change the way we see perception, we'll change the way we think. If we change the way we think into a more godly fashion, book of Galatians chapter 5 verses 22 to 25. If we go to that fruit of the Spirit, Jesus' character, Yeshua, his character that he came to show us how to walk in life, once we change back to that, because we're normally, either some of us are trained into that and some of us are not. Some of us are just being brought up by the streets, and the streets is Galatians 5 chapter 5 verses 19 to 21. That is that fallen character. That's what the street teaches. That's what these videos in the music videos teaches. They teach lust, they teach hate, they teach backbiting, they teach slander, they teach impatient intolerance, not to work hard to get what God's goodness is, but to go out there and get it by any means necessary. Get it how you live. So if you're living ungodly, that's how you're going to gain everything, including who you mate with. And if you're cut off, you're not going to reproduce. And even if you're not cut off, if it's not God's will, you might have a hard time reproducing. There's a lot of people out here that hasn't had a human physical vasectomy and they still can't have children. And the reason why is because it's not God's will. Why is that, Brother Herman? It's because what's living inside of you could be evil, dark, wicked. That's what's going to come out of you. And God he's going to allow so much wickedness into this world. Yes, he allows it, but he only allows so much of it. He's looking for Malachi 2:15, I believe I said. for godly offspring. That's what he's looking for. And yes, there has to be a balance, because how else are you going to know what's good if you don't know what's bad? We have to know what's bad by what? By God's goodness. That's what makes it fair, a fair game for your soul. Because make no mistake about it, that's what this life, this thing called life is about. It's a game. It's a little game over your soul, but you have a decision in it, and you will be sent knowledge to help you what? Make the right decision out of the choices that are presented during your journey. So therefore, it makes it fair, not unfair. So stop crying, start picking up the book, some information, and start teaching yourself if you have to. Look up, ask God, what does this mean? He'll tell you. Trust me, I've been there, I've done that. Okay, so it's not where you're from, it's where you're at. Therefore, spiritual vasectomy is avoidable, but it is the same as cutting off our way, our portal, our tube back to God, who was what? Hoping for our return. Once again, this has been another one of Brother Herman's sermons inside of MaikumCdeTruthorg. This is series 25, God is the creator, all we are creations. Series 4, avoid the spiritual vasectomy if you can, and you can because you have the tools. If you don't have the tools, stop what you're doing, look up and ask. Put your hands together and say, Father God, I don't have the tools that you want me to have to live this thing that we call life. Can you please send them to me? And I guarantee you, you'll have another Brother Herman sermons, episode number 5. Or you might have a next door neighbor come knock on your door and share the good news with you. Or you might have a coworker that just all of a sudden breaks down, somebody you never thought it would be, start sharing the good news of God with you, because all the good news is what the goodness of God has done for you throughout your life. So if we stop being narcissists for just for a minute, stop being so self-centered, and start thinking about what God has blessed us with throughout the favor that he's just dropped down on you for no good reason. It's just dropped down. Could have been a lottery win. It could have been somebody just dropped a check on your doorstep, in your mailbox, whatever. It doesn't have to be monetary. It could just been some love that you needed because you were feeling like nobody loved you. You felt like no one cared. You felt like you were by yourself here in this earth. God doesn't want you to feel that way, so he's going to send somebody to show you his love, unconditional love. Then you're going to look at them like, what? You got a plot? Are you got a plan? Are you trying to manipulate me in some form or fashion? Are you trying to pull one over on my eyes? No. You're going to have all these questions because you're not used to God's love, unconditional love. You're not used to how God moves and how he can send things that you need, send people that you need, send things that you need, send whatever you need. God can do it. All you need to do is get outside yourself and get more into God, especially his son, Yeshua, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, the first, the last, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. You need to get inside Jesus. When you get with Jesus, then you'll begin to understand why, Brother Herman, because Jesus will make you understand. He will help you understand, help you, assist you. He doesn't make us do anything, so that was a bad choice of words. He allows us, he assists us, he waits for you to ask. Until next time, episode number 5. No title yet because we just wait for God to drop it on us. Inside of series 25, God is the creator. We're just creations. Take care of yourself and each other. May God continue to bless us all, and may you have a great rest of your day, your afternoon, and your night. Thank you, and I'm out.